Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gollum's Gamers, where today it is myself and Ali here yet again for another emergency podcast. This must be number, we're slowly approaching 10 with the rate that these emergency pods are coming out. It's very exciting, isn't it, Ali?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure we can call them emergency anymore, as
They
opposed to
are.
just.
What do you mean? We've got I'm currently meant to be working.
I mean,
And
there's a crisis in the world of the amount of emergencies we've got
Well,
to
true. But
talk
in
about.
our sphere, it's as close to an emergency as we get. But they are coming thick and fast at the moment, with obviously the new edition. So we put two up in one day last week, and now here we are the following week with another article. So there is a lot of reading in this one, and I have kind of skimmed through it, and most of the paragraphs do contain actual information. So I will do my best, but I'm sure there's some people out there that will just listen to our podcast rather than reading the article. Maybe like they'll skim through it. So Ashley may be joining us as well. By the way, he may pop in at some point, and you can follow us on Instagram and Spotify by following the links in the description down below. So here we are. The road goes ever on and on at the next edition of the Middle Earth strategy battle game. So I will try and skip some, paragraphs where there is nothing of note. There just aren't really many of them. So the next edition, as you may have heard, the new edition will focus on the upcoming The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim movie. So they have now confirmed it's not just like some sort of tie-in. The new edition will focus on the film. So they've said this is an extremely exciting prospect. It's the first new movie we've been able to work on since The Hobbit. Whilst we can't go into too many details just yet, more in the coming weeks, you'll find a taster of what to expect from the new edition below. So any thoughts on that kind of as a whole? Like the edition is going to be based on
I mean, I think it's kind of what we expected. Like, as in,
based like as in the box set is going to be
oh yeah, I imagine like the
or
the box, the
like
main
sort of
fluff and the scenarios and stuff like that. The main
in the
narrative
edition.
drive will be. Um, and yeah, and then the initial release and what we would expect new models wise will be the stuff from that
Rohirrim
film.
based. God,
Yeah, Rohirrim, Dunland, depending how large the
Ooh.
scope is. Um,
Personally, big thumbs down. Not I know some people love Rohan and they will hate to hear me say that. I'm not a big Rohan guy. I guess you sort of are with Edge's Guard.
but then you'll get the Dunland as well, so you get the Let's Kill Rohan models.
I guess so. Maybe I should take up arms with them, perhaps. But I
Yeah.
just, maybe there's other directions. I guess we're getting the Angmar supplement as well, so that's something that's like a bit
Mm.
fresher at least, because
Oh yeah, I
more
think it's more just going to be the initial release kind of
of the
stuff. So
Rohan
like,
stuff.
I
Yeah.
don't
So
think it'll be that we will only do Rohan going
uh,
forward.
yeah. Anyway, hopefully not. So the entire core rules have been rewritten in an effort to streamline and modernize both the way the rules are presented and the game itself. Clearer language, consistent terminology, and making the rules easier to follow have been the priorities. And a selection of new rules have been added to inject even more narrative flavor into the game. I'm not sure this bit here matters too much. There are no major changes to the core mechanics of the game, which have stayed the same since the game's first release back in 2001. The new edition will build on the solid foundations of the past. That isn't to say there aren't some minor changes. There's always room for improvement, and we in the Middle Earth team have spent a great deal of time, blah, blah, blah. So in this edition, the team have also taken the opportunity to streamline and remove as many unnecessary complexity as possible to create a smoother experience for players. The likes of the in the way chart, yeah. So the in the way chart was one that was seldom used, if not forgotten entirely. So we've done away with it. In the way tests are now passed by rolling a 4+. Any thoughts on that? I think that's
Um, I didn't forget about the in-way chart, and if there's a large rocky outcrop, I would
that's a
try
fiver.
and insist on the 5+. But yeah, this change will have pretty much no impact on most people's games because most people didn't realize that it was 5+ for
Um,
shooting through windows and doors and
yeah.
like
I
plus.
wonder if there's also some changes to how in the ways are drawn. Or clarifications, maybe they've said the
Well, they
chart.
said they're streamlining it, so
Maybe there could be.
could
Uh,
be. I imagine it probably literally is just four
they've
plus in the way for everything now.
Okay, so maybe that's all the changes to shooting that we will see. Perhaps. Who knows? Okay. Special strikes, on the other hand, we have found many people simply weren't interacting with them or were trying to bend to gain an in-game advantage that wasn't intended. Who on earth would try and gain an in-game advantage by using special strikes?
Yeah, I
What
mean,
they're there for? Like,
Jake Wilson's gonna be so disappointed. Him like
what? He
using
can't
stuns
work.
on his Arnold
Yeah.
is like being nipped in the bud so quickly.
Literally, yeah.
Um, it
Yeah. So
it's
what?
interesting. This I know a lot of people say they slowed the game down. I mean, I kind of disagree, but they were introduced to speed the game up because
Right,
SBG back before the Hobbit, you had a lot of two armies at D6 would just slap into each other, and then you're just fishing for sixes. Whereas the introduction of some of the special strikes like Feint or Piercing Strike and Bash meant that you would kill models quicker,
right. That's
um,
right. Okay.
which obviously that's going away.
Mm.
I mean, it's not the biggest change in the world, but I actually can see it. I don't think it will speed the game up at
I'm not
all.
sure because I don't think the game is being slowed down by people not understanding how special strikes work. I
Yeah,
just think people don't use them if they don't understand them. But then for the people
yeah,
who do understand them, or the people that want to try and understand them and improve their gameplay, it's a skill gap and it's something that you can learn to try and
yeah.
make yourself better at the game and to
I
remove that.
I think one of the biggest issues for them was more balancing it. It was different because of where, in theory, everyone had access to every special strike for potentially a point. Is like piercing strike and stun weren't really like equal value, and like the points of the model wasn't usually done thinking in
Yeah,
terms
with
of
that
if they
issue.
had access to an axe.
Yeah. So like
Like,
when you could before the Emperor was nerfed, you could put the axes on all the frontline Easterlings, for example. Like
yeah,
that sort of thing. So I get that.
um,
I just think
um,
having the option to add on these sorts of rules in the right spots is a skill gap and using them in the right
yeah. I mean,
times and stuff.
from a modeling perspective, it means people don't need to like worry about what their models are armed with anymore. So it
Yes,
does
which is
actually
actually
simplify that.
so when
Um,
I first got into the hobby, one of the first armies I got was all the Azog's Legion stuff, and I got the Gundabad upgrade kit, and I still
mm,
have loads of my Gundabads just with the axes on because I just
yeah,
wanted to put them on there, but they're not
yeah.
technically, tournament legal.
Um, the
Um,
the
yeah,
thing I think may happen instead is you will possibly get so like Grim Hammers, for example, may get Bash as a special rule for Grim Hammers with their weapon.
that would
So special strikes may exist still, but for specific models where they've been specifically pointed and designed and
yes,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
So they're accounting
Um,
for that
yeah,
rule being added into the profile. So
that's what I hope anyway. I mean, if they are gone, they're gone.
I
It's
would
not
hope not.
gonna like
Piercing,
ruin the game.
fainting,
But
stuff like that. I think are good, mechanics, and to just completely strip them. I don't think they will. I don't think. But they go on to say that they are sailing off into the west. All hand weapons are now the same, regardless of whether they're swords, axes, maces, or clubs. This also means players are free to convert their models to carry whatever hand weapon they wish. So there we go. I guess just stripping away some potential complexity there. So there is also a greater focus on narrative armies than before, especially in match play. Interesting. The Middle-earth strategy battle game centers around key storylines from the movies and books, and allowing players to recreate those scenes and armies on the tabletop is a key part of gaming experience. Every profit in the game is split into a series of army lists, each designed to focus on a particular scene, battle, or group of characters from the movies or books, and each with their own flavorful special rules. The aim is to have every army feel like an iconic scene and to evoke the wonderful world and themes of Middle Earth. So I should probably carry on with this next bit here. So Jay explains the current edition introduced legendary legions, a special army list that represent key armies and events from the page and screen. These prove to be wildly popular with fans, so we've taken this concept one step
yeah.
further. Now, I'm not sure that's why
To be
they
fair,
were.
if you are a fan of Legendary Legions, you probably will find them. It will be wildly popular among you. But
Yeah.
I would say a lot of people have gone sour on them
Legions.
of Legendary Legions in recent
Yes,
years.
and the idea, was to represent themes and
Mm,
moments. Like I think that's what they always wanted, but it just ended up being the best things in the game. So then
yeah,
people sort of loathe them naturally. Um,
and they had a tendency to skew and break the game in order to make a themed moment competitive.
yes, yeah, to then make people use it, right? So they're
Yeah,
sort of bringing the theme of legions just sort of into the factions, if if you like, the army lists. So now every army list. So I guess those are factions, or factions as we know
There's the
now.
Mordor, Minister of
Yes, but
like Khazad-dûm.
they're probably not going to be called that though, because as they go on to say now, every army list will be presented in the same manner as legendary legions, ensuring that every army fits the theme of Middle Earth. There are loads of these to choose from, and we have taken great care to make sure that if there is a scene in the movie showcasing characters fighting alongside one another, then there is an appropriate army list to represent that on the tabletop. So uh, outside the Black Gate, for example, there's the Men of the West Legendary Legion, right? So is there now going to be a Men of the West army list like this?
Yeah, so
How are they grouping it?
so for those of you who are old enough to remember, there was a book that came out which was so post Lord of the Rings films was sort of the edition of the game that was used, and it's called Legions of Middle Earth. And so the way that worked is you had prescribed army lists um, as opposed to factions. So in your army list, it would be like, for example, you'd have several different what we would now call Khazad-dûm dwarf army lists, but one of them would be Balin's expedition, and so you could only take Balin and certain models, and one of
Okay.
them was Durin, and sort of the sort of kingdom of Khazad-dûm, and you could only take Durin, Mardin, and certain models, and each one of those could ally with certain things that was timeline appropriate. So it
Okay.
basically takes it away from the faction and kind of puts the focus on the timeline and
So
that.
is
So
so is this literally the same thing then? They're calling it the
that
same.
yeah, from what I can gather from this article, it's. I mean, I've already made a meme about it, like on, on the Discord groups, where it's like I feel like I've seen this one before, and it's basically Legions of Middle Earth. Um, so if anyone's interested, I'm not saying it is definitely going to be that, but I have a feeling it's going to be
This seems
basically Legions of Middle Earth 2.0. You can probably find that online somewhere, just as
yeah.
a sort of PDF.
Okay.
Um, and
Interesting.
then they'll probably put on top the sort of the Legendary Legion
Yeah,
specials like
rules and
that
things.
we're sort of familiar with now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Where was I? No, beyond this, we yes. For players that like to find the most potent combinations, fear not. Many of these army lists will still provide ample opportunity for you to try out your combinations and see what you can come up with. So you're going to be able to ally stuff, but it's going to be more restricted, maybe.
Yeah, I that's what I'm hoping. Basically, it does just sound like Legion of Middle Earth to me. So I think it will just be if you take
Tell me
Durin,
what you
you
can.
can only ally with like Lothlorien
Yeah, and that's it.
and people like that.
You just
Whereas if
tell
you take
me.
Balin, you can't because they were cut off.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
Or
guess
like
the
if you take
alliance make
Boromir,
yeah,
Captain of the White Tower, you won't be able to take Gandalf the White and Aragorn because they're not in that list. However, you could
yeah,
ally with X, Y, and Z instead.
instead. I guess that is what the alliance matrix is telling you as well. It just
Doesn't
it's
do
a much
it
broader
really.
brush.
Yeah,
Yeah, where
it's very clunky. At the moment, we're working with two systems: one the Alliance Matrix, and then one Legendary Legions. And then this is basically
they're trying to
going, cool. We're gonna just do one
yeah,
system,
yeah,
and it's we're gonna build army lists and go. This army list can ally with X, Y, Z.
yeah. But
Um,
it seems like there may be sort of fewer options on the table for most lists potentially.
you may have more lists though. It will basically just be
Of course, because there might not be the same amount of
yeah.
factions.
So rather than going, I've got a Minas Tirith army. You go, I've got a Minas Tirith army either led by Boromir or led
Yeah,
by
yeah.
Aragorn, King
Could
of
be
Lesser,
called
and
something different
they're
or
separate
yeah, yeah,
completely. And
yeah.
so they may have different options. So one may not have Citadel Guard, whereas the
Yeah,
other
and
one
other
may
will.
do, or
So it
stuff
won't
like
just be
that.
a generic Minas Tirith
Yeah,
faction. This has everything in. You can do what you want. Could be segregated. Yeah. So
yeah.
okay. As part of the greater focus on the narrative, every profile has been reworked and many characters have received updated or new abilities to better represent them on the battlefield. Jay continues, this isn't to say that every profile has drastically changed, more that we have taken the opportunity to rebalance many of them, add extra flavor, or simply see if we can tweak how they work to better represent the character on the battlefield. In many cases, the profiles will still function in the same way. However, they will have updated wording for their rules to fit in with the new edition and to make them clearer for players to understand.
Which actually, just quickly on that, it sounds like they're probably, and it'd be good, hopefully, hone down on keywords and like act and sort of
Yes.
because they introduced on this edition, but they didn't actually quite do it on everything. Like Legendary Legion specials often were missing like active or passive and things like
Yes,
that. So
true, true. Yeah.
hopefully that's what they mean by cleaning it up and
Tighten
it,
the belt on
yeah.
some things. Yeah, yeah. One thing we have looked at is the distribution of fight values, which lots of people thought they might. Something that fans have been asking about for a long time. There are a lot of models in the 3 to 6 range of fight values, making it quite congested. Whilst we haven't changed the maximum fight value, so it still caps at 10, we have taken the opportunity to spread out the fight values in that 3 to 6 range and even a few beyond. This means profiles that would have been considered to be the top of fight value 3, as it were, will see themselves bumped up to fight value 4, and those at the top of fight value 4 will see themselves bumped up to fight 5, and so on. This is applied to both heroes and warriors, so you may well see some fan favorites being that bit more potent in the next edition. Ali King, your thoughts?
Oh, I like this. This is one which I think probably out of everything mentioned here, I would hope universally people would be in favor of.
Yeah,
Because it will hopefully see like, I mean, for me personally, Khazad be bumped up to something like fight 5 because they're the elite of the dwarves. Why are they the same fight
yeah,
as a dwarf warrior? And then you
yeah,
may be able to then differentiate between warriors of Ministerial who are meant to be a disciplined and trained army and the warrior of Rohan. So the
yes,
Ministerial warriors could go up to fight 4 and stuff like that.
yeah,
And then equally, all those fight 6 heroes and fight 5, you suddenly can actually get a
yeah,
bit of
yeah,
difference going.
yeah, differentiation.
Durin, who's the greatest dwarf, is actually now better than the other dwars or
It's
stuff
not
like that.
Durin! Come on, Durin!
I've mentioned him 3 times already in this.
His time's here.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just giving some more breathing room should be good
Yeah.
and provide more variety.
Yeah, I would imagine we will have a lot more things at like fight sort of 9, like 8 and 9, like these elf lords and things, you know.
I think nearly all the elf lords will go up to fight 7, and then
Or
got
you think even not higher than that?
and no, I mean Golfdale will probably go up to fight 8, and like Gil-galad may stay at fight 9, but I don't. You don't actually need to bump that many up that higher.
I think there's going to be quite a lot because like it sort of says in the 3 to 6 range, you've got a lot of heroes in this fight 5 and
Yeah,
6 range, and if they're going to spread those out into sort of the into fight 6, well then that really closes the gap between the fight 6 ones and the fight 7 ones, so you have to bump those up, you know.
yeah. I don't think there'll be many troops that get bumped up to fight 6. I think what you'll see is heroes be bumped up from 5 to 6,
Yeah,
like maybe some Vohan ones,
and then from
and
6
then
to
like you'll
7,
see
yeah.
the fight 6 heroes bumped up to 7. Like I mean, you may get 8 for some of the elf lords, like who knows, but.
Yeah, but if you're putting, say, someone like Imrahil or someone like that up to fight 7, well
I
then,
don't think they would though. I think Imrahil would stay at fight 6. Um,
so it might
I
be sort of everywhere, but
yeah, I think you'll find the differentiation will probably happen more in the fight 2 to fight 5 bracket, and then it would just be the big heroes in fight 6 who should be higher fight value will go up to
yeah, we'll get
7.
the nod to go up,
Yeah.
yeah. And hopefully a couple coming down, maybe Azog and Bolg. But
Well, I mean, if the other heroes go up to fight 7, then you don't really need that.
okay, true. I did sort of say though that if it was in a comment recently to someone where if you're gonna suddenly make say Azog and Bolg worse because you're making everything around it better, well then you've got to find a way to make up for that in the troops or something like that, because the
I mean,
heroes
because everything's
carrying
been
the army.
redone at the same time though. It's the one time you can do it.
I wonder. Yeah, so that would be good to see. So fight value change, something we expected to see, and it's not too big a shame that it isn't going up higher. I would have maybe liked to have seen it go higher than 10.
I don't think it
Change it.
needed to.
I don't think it needed it either, but like,
And you could just say I mean, it's arbitrary to a certain extent.
yeah,
It also we don't know how or if heroic strike is changing.
we do not yet.
So
Yeah,
that would play an impact into this.
very much so. Yeah. So, okay, we'll leave that one there. So, moving on, there will also be a new intelligence characteristic. So, a change to the actual profile, which will work in much the same way as courage. In the current edition, a model's courage characteristic is often used arbitrarily to make tests that feel a bit odd, such as seeing if a model has the wits to spot an invisible ring bearer. In the new edition, these sorts of tests will be taken with a model's intelligence characteristic instead. So where it says up there will work in much the same way as courage, I wonder if there are.
I think that's more if you have to take an intelligence test, roll 2d6, add your intelligence. I think that's what they mean. So if you have an intelligence of 4, you'll pass sort of more often than you fail.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's This one's interesting because it's what other stuff would they use it for?
Yes, well, that's it because it's in much the same way, but are they maybe
Yeah.
using it for
Well,
other?
also, as a bit of a flashback to the last emergency pod I was on with the trolls with their
Oh yeah,
cunning intelligence
oh yeah,
special
oh,
or
yeah.
whatever.
The hill troll intelligence. Yeah,
Yeah. I wonder if this is related. But
indeed.
it's kind of one of those like it may have an impact more like say the only other stuff I can think of like the specters or the Mirkwood sentinels and stuff like that could be an
Yeah,
intelligence test instead.
yeah. I
Um,
think one thing that would be interesting would be if maybe it was used for like jump tests and stuff.
but
Like,
does
like
being
if
able to jump high make you more intelligent?
no, but if you're an orc and you're just bumbling around because you're a
Yeah.
fucking stupid orc, you've got low intelligence, you might trip over the wall. But if you're a Mirkwood ranger gliding through the
I,
open ground,
I think it's more like there'll be some more special rules or spells that will require an intelligence test.
sure.
The only other one that I thought is if you have a high intelligence, maybe when you're tied on a heroic move, it gives you an advantage or something like that.
Oh, as in the hero
Yeah, yeah.
that
So
that would be
so
interesting.
Aragon is more intelligent than Gorbag. So Aragon like actually
Leave
will
Gorbag
win.
out of this, right? Just because
Yeah.
Ash isn't here to defend
Yeah,
him.
I was one who used him last weekend, but that will give you like you will win the roll off on a 3, 4, 5, 6 instead, or something along those lines. So that would be an
The
interesting thing.
difference of
Yeah,
X, then
yeah,
getting a +1 or something. Yeah.
um,
So maybe there, yeah, other rules and stuff it's used with.
yeah.
We'll see. Okay. Finally, we have added a number of new thematic special rules to various profiles, helping to invoke their characters from the films and make them feel even more like they do on screen. Sam can now use his frying pan in combat. Come on, Sam. Lurtz can potentially shrug off wounds, and Isildur can potentially wield the shards of Narsil should Elendil be slain. Any sort of comment there on that one?
I mean, it kind of relates to sort of what I was on about with special strikes. I feel like you instead of special strikes, you'll get specific special rules for things like the frying pan to
Yeah.
represent it. I imagine it wouldn't surprise me if it just ended up being what Bash is this edition or something like that.
Could be.
Lurtz is becoming more. I like how every time there's a new release, Lurtz is like, and now even themier than before.
Yeah.
And it's like we gave him a shield, now we'll give him like the feel no
You
pain
get
sort
it.
of save.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's cool. And then Isidore wielding shards of Narsil. I wonder whether that will be he, like he can wound anyone on a 4+ kind of thing or
That would be
something like
hard.
that.
That would be
Yeah.
insane if he could. Yeah. Um, okay. So moving on, what does this mean for Middle Earth? So upon the release of the new edition, two supplements will be available: Armies of the Lord of the Rings and Armies of the Hobbit. Each of these will focus solely on the heroes, villains, warriors, and creatures and armies from their respective films. But what about anything that isn't directly in the films? We hear you cry. Fear not, young Hobbit. An additional supplement will be released a short while later, entitled Armies of Middle Earth, which will focus on any profiles that do not feature in the films themselves. Writing an entire new edition and reworking every profile has proven to be a mummock-sized task, so to make sure everything is as good as it can be, the supplement will arrive a little later than the others, but still precisely when it means to. Very interesting here. What are your thoughts?
Um, I'm pretty sure this is a license kind of related thing. So
Correct.
it is again they're having to keep the Lord of the Rings film stuff and the Hobbit film stuff separate from then like the Tolkien estate or whatever the company that owns the rights to it now. Separate. Like they're not allowed to probably cross contaminate each other's books.
But
For
why would there so but then why is it that anything that isn't included in the films can't be included in those in the books?
because it'd be like a licensing thing, basically. Like, but we're never gonna know the full ins and outs.
No.
But like that, because if War of the Rohirrim's coming out, they probably don't. For example, the studio don't want a
Maybe
book
it's more
which
about that.
about their film with a whole bunch of models which has nothing to do with their film.
Yeah, maybe it's more
Um,
about that. Like maybe
yeah,
yeah, like the studio will have, they'll be credited in the book or whatever, and
yeah.
have that, crossing over and whatever. So, but there's going to be on the release of the new edition, there'll be two army books, just like there have been. But then at a later point, there will be a third book coming out. Not sure how much later that would be, but that is quite interesting that not everything will be
So
released.
I have a feeling I may be wrong. There was a book that came out. It may have been the Armies of the Hobbit was slightly behind the Armies of the Lord of the Rings.
At the start of the new edition.
Yeah, I
I'm not
could be
sure.
wrong with that though. But yeah, no, I mean, it also means that we've at least know we've got something to look forward to, like down the
True.
line. We can all
Um,
have fun and play with the film stuff, and then like we can then have fun and play with the book stuff.
we love having fun and playing, don't we, Ali?
Yeah.
Yep, the
Oh
golf
yeah.
gamers. Oh yeah. Well, moving on to something else which will be coming a little bit later on is the Legacies of Middle Earth. So Middle Earth strategy battle game has been going strong for over 20 years, and as a result has had many years of profiles and miniatures. To continue supporting the game and bringing you amazing new miniatures, some older profiles will have to make way in order for new exciting miniatures to flourish. These will not feature in any of the supplements, however, they will feature in the Legacies of Middle Earth PDF, which will be available to download for free at the same time that the Armies of Middle Earth is released, that third sort of book, which will be coming at a later date. This PDF will contain updated rules for all the profiles to fit with the new edition, which is good, and will also have a selection of army lists for you to use those profiles in. While profiles and army lists in the Legacies of Middle Earth will not be legal for official Games Workshop run tournaments, tournament organizers are still absolutely welcome to allow them in their own independent tournaments and gaming weekends. And of course, you can use them at home or at your gaming clubs. Very interesting here, Ali.
Can I just say I'm so happy Games Workshop are letting me do what I want at my own events. Like I was really worried
Thank
they weren't
God for
going
that.
to.
Just
Yeah.
to let you know, Ali, if you want to add in your own home cooked,
Yeah, I always find it funny how like in these are because they always reference that like that they could say, "Oh, you're not allowed to do this at tournaments." I'll be like,
yeah.
"Piss off!" Like I'll do what I want.
No.
But this is going to be the bit that will worry most people: is what models are going? Will my army still be valid?
I'm not going to lie. I mean, just on the first bit there, they said to continue supporting the game, we're going to have to take away some things. But what? I don't
So
know.
I think it's more likely. So we've got a bunch of models which are out of production, and it may be those models are never going to be able to come back in
But there's
production.
still going to be tons of models that are going to be out of production still. So
I mean, we don't know how much is going in it.
they just
So
trying to shrink the catalog a bit. Like I can't imagine they'll be getting
yeah,
rid.
I mean, it's grown quite. Like you could get rid of, let's just say, one or two profiles from every like faction,
But is
and
that really like you're only getting rid of
and
one
we'd
or two
still have
products?
more profiles now than we did at the start of the last edition.
Okay, but I'm just
Um,
like I just don't
so
know why.
profiles which are most likely to go in the legacies slash the bin of Middle Earth will probably be GW inventions. So
Okay.
stuff which doesn't really feature in the books or the films, like as in referenced, could go. So trying to think of like some
Yeah.
examples,
Um,
or if their model isn't based off a movie, like still like so the orc named characters, which are technically GW inventions to a certain extent, because
yeah.
they're based off something in the film. I'd expect them to stay, but
Yeah.
um,
Something that is just a clear cut invention that
yeah,
wasn't. And we are joined
or been
on the
joining.
on the on the emergency podcast by Mr. Ashley Walger. What up?
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What a day
Oh,
to be alive.
man is here. You have
What
arrived.
a day.
What a day. We have gone through much of it, but we are on
Excellent.
probably the juiciest bit that you've just arrived for. The legacy
Legacy.
of Middle Earth. So we've read through the whole sort of spiel as you have as well. So any initial takeaways from yourself on this one, Ashley?
Do you know what? This is quite bad. I only
Ashley.
skimmed through and read some of it.
Oh, you're late. You haven't done the
I just wanted to
research.
be here for the fun, guys. Come on. I'm here for the hype and to disagree with Ali because he deserves it.
Well,
I'm sure
I was
you've
saying
already
nice
talked
things
about.
about you earlier, Ash.
Oh, that's actually very sweet. I think the main thing, I don't know if you touched upon it, is the special strikes being removed. I know you mentioned in our chat you didn't like that, but it always
Well, I
irked me.
mentioned that.
I said
Well,
that.
Elliot mentioned it.
I was about to say I haven't messaged in our chat at all. I save
It always
the
annoyed
views
me
for the viewers at home.
that like a Goblin Town warrior could they just always took all axes, and now all of a sudden like these little 4-point models pierce up to strength 4 and become quite good and start killing stuff, and it's like that's quite annoying.
So my main point was special strikes were always quite hard to balance because of being available for everyone. I hope and I think what you'll find is models which should have a special strike, like Grimhammer's having Bash, may just have it as a special in their profile instead.
Yeah, that would make much more sense.
Yeah.
Or something. I can see Rohan having axes, being able to piercing strike. That's kind of like that's
just
their
like
whole
built
thing.
into their profile.
But Goblin Town, no piercing striking for you, please.
So Ashley, where we are. So
please.
I will read through it for you once again in case our Spotify listeners didn't quite catch it the first time. I'm going to go through it for you a second again. So to continue supporting the game and bringing you amazing new miniatures, some older profiles are going to have to make way in order for new, exciting miniatures to flourish. These will not feature in any of the supplements. However, they will feature in the Legacies of Middle-earth PDF, which will be available to download for free at the same time that the Armies of Middle-earth is released. This PDF will contain updated rules for all the profiles to fit with the new edition, and will also have a selection of army lists for you to use those profiles in. While profiles and army lists in the Legacies of Middle-earth will not be legal for official Games Workshop events, you can still use them in your own tournaments. So they're basically just retiring.
Ooh.
Which they have done in several other game systems. Recently. So 40k, that was a big issue.
Ali's initial take was that it might be because I've totally mind blanked, Ali.
Models which have gone out of production and don't have a basis in film or book.
They're never going to come back. So.
Yeah, because there won't be much financial incentive because they're not going to be the biggest selling things in the world anyway. And also there may be a rights issue on some of them as well. Which they can't be bothered to have a fight about.
I do like how they've made the effort though to put them into this legacy PDF.
Because they could have just been them off, but they
could have just been them off. And I'm certain that, a lot of TOs, depending on what models they are going to allow them in GBHO events.
But there is a world where they do not.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, it will come up down to individual TOs. I think for the first year, at least, everyone won't have an issue with it. It will be the sort of in 2-3 years' time that you'll probably start getting events which they'll drop off of and phase out. And but if those models aren't available anymore, then that's not really going to... I mean, it will suck for people who've been in the hobby or like own the models, but it become less and less of a current issue.
Then let's say, if we ever see another edition of the game, I don't think they'll be taking the legacies, of Middle-earth into the edition, would they? So
those models have a 5-6 year
lifespan
clock on them
left now.
And as long as it's not Black Numenorians, who even cares?
So I've got a theory on Black Numenorians, and because I think they'll stay because they're part of the game, but because I don't know if you saw the bit earlier about the army list.
Yes, and how they're all getting
so what you will possibly find is they will only be available in like maybe an actual Barad list or something like that. And also, I think you may find they'll get their name changed or combined with Morganites as a profile.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why they're two separate like names, even though one is the full version.
The Knights of the Lamroth have basically the same thing, right? They can be really good on horse and they're quite good on foot.
I mean, they're even basically the same thing where they both got a plastic cavalry kit like 10 years ago at the same time. So they'll probably still get massively nerfed. Just for you.
You're hoping. It
would be sort of genuinely like, because when you get a new supplement, I mean, I'm not someone who really looks at many of the scenarios and things like that. I tend to just like skip to the Legendary Legions and read the rules and the profiles and stuff. But the new edition and the new army books, it would actually just be so interesting to actually have the book turn up and just flick through every page and look at what has changed.
Well, that's what we're gonna do, isn't it? We're gonna have like
We
a
are
whole
going to
have
9-hour
a
pod.
the entire book release.
We're gonna do two. We're gonna have a Rise of Angmar book release, or we could call it a book club with the
Oh.
Gollum's gamers. How cute would that
Yeah.
be?
I'll have to
And
get to
then-
work and Photoshop of Gollum there with a book. And,
Gollum reading a book
glasses
instead of
on.
eating a fish.
But no. But yeah, like anyway, back on the legacies, it's gonna upset a bunch of people because they're some ones models that they really like are gonna go in the bin.
They are.
Yeah.
Gulliver may be one of them.
Here's what I mentioned.
Whoa!
Like, put it this way, he's not been mentioned at all
Never. Yeah.
in the
And he didn't
in the
get
Rise of Angmar.
Yeah, if he was ever going to get a new model, it would be right.
Yeah, and he's been out of production for a long time. I think he may be a legacy model.
Am
Sorry.
I right in thinking that Gulliver was a GW creation in the first place?
That's it.
Yeah. So,
So-
vampires were a thing which is vaguely mentioned, like offhandedly in source material. But
Yeah.
I don't Gulliver as the name and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure is unique to
Games
GW.
Workshop. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a solid shout. Rest in peace, Gulliver.
R.I.P. Gully, and all of the other models. Ali, go on. Final thought on this.
Yeah, but my main thing is I reckon Marden is going to get an amazing profile in the new edition, but it will be in Legacies of Middle Earth, and therefore like it'll be shit and unavailable long
The
term.
last little thing
Yeah.
to the Mardian fans.
Oh no.
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to move on to this next part here. So the current Middle Earth supplement. So with such a comprehensive update to the game, all previous Middle Earth supplements will no longer be valid for match play. That doesn't stop you from using them at home, of course. The narrative scenarios contained within them will still work for playing through the stories and scenes, blah, blah, blah. Onto the Rise of Angmar. So the recently announced Rise of Angmar supplement was written for the current edition, and as such,
okay.
is to be valid for match
so
play.
that hits all of our points of the fight value for the new heroes. You're like, oh, they've released all the new fight values for the new heroes, but it was not. It wasn't a red herring. It was just they just didn't combine them.
Yeah,
so,
I think this shows that the supplement was delayed by about
a
3
lot,
months.
and it
Yeah.
must be more than that. I reckon. I think.
Well,
yeah.
It would make sense if it came out 6 months before the new edition, because that would give them enough time to like actually
I think
exist.
with the amount of time since the Defense of the North to the Rise of Angmar, it's going to be like well over like a year and a half.
But I mean, as in this specifically, though, I think was probably meant to come out at least 6 months before the new edition.
The Rise of Angmar.
That's great that it's going to be free. There's going to be a free PDF.
Well, it's not free for the last 2 months of the edition or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So, moving on, we are well aware of the short shelf life of Rise of Angmar and wanted to make sure that you, our customers, have all the information before you purchase it. Rise of Angmar is a chance for collectors to wrap up the current edition of the game with the last supplement for it, and still contains plenty of exciting match play content that will see out the final months of the current edition. Also, the narrative scenarios featured are some of the most exciting and dynamic we have produced. And then there's another part down here. Yes,
it's also why I think they didn't put much effort into the cover, which I slagged off last
maybe
week.
so.
Yeah.
However, as the release of Rise of Angmar comes so close, to the new edition, there will also be a free Armies of Arnor and Angmar PDF available to download upon the launch of the new edition, containing the rules for using the profiles and associated army lists for both Arnor and Angmar. So anyone who purchased the new models doesn't have to wait for the Armies of Middle-earth to be able to field them in the new edition. So that sort of confirms there. So things like these new models that they've just announced that weren't in the books or the films will be in this new Armies of Middle-earth coming out after the other two. So very interesting here.
I think we should give talking of narrative scenarios, we should give a shout out to David Clubley, who, if you follow on Facebook, does cute little reviews on the different narrative scenarios. So keep it up, clubbers.
So
just supporting our community here, you know.
What GW will get to do again is re-release pretty much all of exactly the same narrative scenarios for the third, fourth time in some cases, with just slight tweaks. But
so I think what must have sort of happened, I mean, all of the Middle Earth, like the Forge World team and things working on the old world. It just must be that sort of the resources were just pulled away from Middle
I
Earth
think it's more
longer than
this.
they expected.
This is probably ready to go for ages. I think it's a GW release schedule issue
Oh,
and
you think
like
that's
their
why?
warehouse, because it for a book like that to be produced, it's normally like I don't know a year to minimum 6 months lead time. So it probably got produced and then has been waiting in a warehouse for a long time,
Mm.
and then it's just maybe with 40k getting new edition or old world getting released and stuff like that, there was
Yeah.
just never a slot that they were given
Yeah,
by the
maybe
higher
they
ups.
wanted to accelerate it so that they can fit the release of the new edition into their Christmas window.
Mm.
So that's
Well,
why.
yeah, I mean that
Yeah,
coming out as well would have impacted it. I
yeah.
feel like we wouldn't have actually. The only reason they're still releasing this book physically is because they'd happen to have it all printed,
Because it's
and
already
so that
there.
because
Otherwise, yeah.
they're obviously not going to sell anywhere near as many as they would have.
They have made the models for it and things, but yeah, they wouldn't have put all the effort into the production of it
Of the
and
book.
stuff. If
Well, no,
no,
as in the models they can do, but the book itself is like they would have just waited otherwise.
they
And they're
wouldn't
like,
really
oh, we've already
release.
got it made. We may as well try and get some money back on
They wouldn't
the
really
book.
release like the new supplements with the
Yeah,
new edition with just random new profiles just in there that they haven't announced
yeah.
like previously. Like like I don't think we're going to open up the supplement books when the new edition's released and there's just new profiles in there. Like
Mm,
so they've got to release them through something, right? So I
yeah.
guess this is how they're doing it. So it'll be interesting to see. And then finally, the August Middle Earth Strategy Battle Game FAQ. With the next edition so close, we have made the decision not to release our usual FAQ for August, but they'll be back in February with the usual updates. The first of the new edition. So that confirms the new
Whoa.
edition coming out before February. So
But then also the Rise of Angmar implies that didn't say a couple of months before the new edition.
what? Sorry.
Didn't it say Rise of Angmar will be a couple of months before the new edition?
Oh,
If
oh,
you
oh,
scroll
oh,
up.
yes. So close to the where is it? And as such, we're well aware of the short shelf life. Wrap up the current edition. To see out the
See out
final
the final
month
months of it.
of the current edition.
So that implies at least two. And so you've got a window between sort of February being the first FAQ. So you've got January, December,
It's got to
like
be before, yeah, like well before.
November. So
Yeah,
either this comes out next month, which I think is quite likely now,
it could be. Yeah.
and then the new edition is November, like late November, December time.
Yeah.
I
So
think that's the schedule we're probably looking at.
yeah, and then said we'll be providing plenty more updates in the coming weeks and months. So
Ooh.
we could at this rate be getting a new article almost weekly with new information or a
Now I'm gonna have to
pre-order
start
date.
charging.
This one was a chunky article.
Yeah,
This
Like
was.
there's lots to digest in there.
Yeah. But like actual tweaks, and I mean, this might not be all of the key main things that are changing.
oh, it won't be.
No,
So
no.
just
I
what they're
mean,
doing.
the biggest things that kind of is referenced, and we'll probably get more details on it, is the Legions of Middle Earth 2.0, as I'm going to keep referring to it as,
Yeah.
and probably special strikes going in the bin. Oh,
Yeah,
and obviously the legacy models will become
that
legacy.
whole Legacy to Middle Earth thing.
It's good that we did call the fight value change though. Not
Yeah.
up to 20, but we did say it was
Not
changing.
higher. But and Ali also made a very good point that they obviously haven't. There's no word on like heroic actions yet, and what might be those. So like heroic strike, there could still be much.
It could just become D3. It could be like, I mean, heroic strike could just be in the bin. Who knows?
Yeah.
Or they haven't mentioned scenarios. They haven't mentioned a match play
and
guide.
Oh yeah, so there is no. So when the new edition came, the current edition rather, I'll stop calling it a new edition. The scenarios were with it originally
within the book,
and then it wasn't until a year later the match play guide came out.
So, but I would honestly really hope that with the release of the new edition, they would do something with the scenarios, just anything.
Oh yeah, but it would be in the main. It would be in the main rule book.
If it's another year until they bring out some kind of update to the match play guide, that would really.
No, I think it will be in the main rule book, and because the current match play guide would fit into the it is a current source book rules manual and is being made redundant.
Yeah. So, but just hopefully there are considerable changes or just new scenarios, so yeah, keep things fresh. But that is going to do it. So, any closing thoughts from either of you?
Oh,
No.
It's, I mean,
I'm just
there's a lot that
overwhelmed.
could go south with what they've announced, but also it's always going to be in the execution. So I'm going to stay optimistic because the game needs new, fresh sort of stuff.
Oh,
I doubt everyone will be happy though.
yeah, I'm optimistic. The thing that is hinted is that a list, something that Sam was really excited for, and I think a lot of people were really excited for, was new list building, and I guess it's implied that list building may be somewhat restricted into these set
Yeah.
legions and themes, and there's no mention of the alliance matrix.
So actually, you missed the whole thing where I was going through what Legions of Middle Earth used to be, which is essentially what they're describing.
Okay.
So I'll bring you up to date on that afterwards. So
Yeah.
the audio
The
listeners
viewers don't have to hear it twice.
Yeah.
But if that does sort of restrict the list building, then I think some people will be disappointed after the initial, let's build within these legions.
Yeah, there is a risk that if it becomes mono, like as in it is every army looks pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Because I guess because obviously now we sort of think, with the alliance matrix, it's like a bit of a mess and stuff, but it does allow you, I guess, to do unique and different.
Does let you have good fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I did write an excellent blog article quite a few years ago now called "Theme at All Costs," where I kind of go in depth about like forcing people to be themey can be counterproductive.
Yeah.
Because it's basically pre-prescribing fun. So it's
SR will be linked below. Don't worry, we'll shout Annie out.
There is a very strong theme here of that.
Yeah.
Really?
They are really going, after the theme in everything that they're doing.
Because no matter what you do, it'll be one person's opinion on what theme is, and that isn't always actually sort of going to be a universal opinion.
And you can have film theme, or you could have book theme.
But you can also have personal theme. So I could go, there was a random King of Gondor. I can't think of his name. Let's just go with Steve, in between two things. And I want to build an army list around that. And so I'm going to use certain models and profiles to represent my own sort of narrative. Perfectly theme, if anything, more creative. But we could be told no.
Personal as in creative theme, or you've created kind of what battle companies did. How you had I've made this dwarf, but he's actually really good at archery, and he leads his ranger band of chapos, and it's fun to have your own
I guess
take
it's
the story with you, as opposed to being told this is the theme you will.
And I guess that's what it's about. It's where they're going to place the boundaries with that, and the borders and what you can and can't do. I would hope it's not too restrictive, and that they allow you to still do interesting things with list building and stuff, like you say, Ash.
Just to wait.
Watching who are afraid of the change and stuff, and obviously things could be worse in some areas, but the game has, I think most people who are into the game enough to watch our content would probably agree that there is the game's been fairly stagnant the last little while. So
I mean, with any change, there's opportunity and risk.
Exactly.
The sort of the core mechanics of the game of Middle-earth are really, really, really good. So it's sort of the
changing
tweaks around the edges to make it better. But I'm optimistic. I think it should be. I think it's going to be good.
With the legacies and stuff, and the army lists and stuff, they're fairly substantial changes to how it actually works.
Definitely.
So I was going to say, changing the core rules of the game is also a subjective opinion of what a core rule is.
What a core rule is, sure.
Move here and do what the actual
pairing off combats, rolling individuals.
I mean, war bands didn't used to exist, but people consider that a core part of the game now.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure there will be many more changes coming. So yeah.
Just look forward to our 25-part book series of the
Oh,
new book, going through every profile.
Yeah, and then
and part
Ash
25.
pronouncing every other word wrong.
Yeah. Hey,
and part,
reading is hard. I haven't seen you read one of the articles yet.
I think I
Yeah.
read all of this fairly well. I'm not going to
Oh
take.
yeah,
there was
no, you
no-
didn't actually trip over any of the
I
words
didn't
though.
There's no
really.
difficult law
I-
words in here.
there
They
wasn't,
all just
and I
that
kind of
was just standard English.
I
I
knew
had
there
to read.
wasn't. That's why I aced it.
To be fair, standard English is normally what Elliot struggles with.
But it's clearly not true. The audience has seen themselves.
Viewers, let us know in the comments below what you think of the new edition so far. Are you excited? Are you scared?
What models do you think will be binned and go into legacies?
What models are going into the dog category and never been seen again?
Yeah, and are you looking forward to part 20 of the emergency podcast series?
Yeah.
That will be coming very soon, no doubt.
We might as well just say see you next week, because
See you anyway,
we probably will.
we will indeed, no doubt. Okay, well, I think that's going to close it out. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching another emergency podcast from the Gollum's Gamers.
Yippee!